So I'm sorry to say that these videos take me way too much time to make, so they are rare for me to get done, and I'm really sorry about that, unless I find something that I'm super into and then I just hyper-focus, and here we are. In the space of 1 week I have played this game, drawn this picture, and written the script. However, that doesn't mean that I've gotten around to recording it or anything. Far from it, in fact, but you know what? I got through this pretty quick for a game. Even though it is a slightly older game, only by a year or so. But anyway, what game am I reviewing today? I'm reviewing MazM Phantom of the Opera, produced by Growing Seed, which is an up-and-coming Korean company, I believe. At least if what I've been reading was correct, though honestly you really wouldn't be able to tell. There have only been a couple of minor translation issues, but nothing major. That's not the point of this, we'll maybe get into that later. You may well be surprised to find out that I love musicals. Well, not all musicals, but the ones on the dark side. Repo the Genetic Opera, Black Butler, which is also an anime and a manga, and of course Phantom of the Opera. The biggest difference between the previous three musicals, the last one has several options for gaming, and I have played most of them. Don't shame me, but every casual gamer has played at least one of those hidden object games that is linked to some pop culture reference at some point. And I am no less than the rest of the fanbase. And I do mean PH in front of the fanbase. It's what a lot of people in the Phantom of the Opera call themselves. So imagine my surprise when I dip back into the fandom over the winter and find out that there is another game that I have not played yet. I had to jump into it feet first. This version of Phantom of the Opera as a game is much more fleshed out. Instead of being a standard 2D game with slight alterations per screen, this has proper animations, sprites, movement, and story arcs. The game design is just beautiful, which is something I would hope for and expect for a game that is based on such an old and beloved novel. Maybe it's just me, but most people that have read the novel do actually enjoy it. The ballerinas are obviously young women from their designs, the workers are obviously workers, and the managers are, well, managers, even if they aren't great at their jobs. The main characters are where things get a little bit different. Before we get into that, let's start with the story, shall we? There are going to be spoilers for the book, the musical, and the game, but considering how old the book is, you might want to give it a look over first. The first character that we meet in the game is the Detective, an eccentric-looking character reminiscent of another popular anime character for a given value of popular, the Graveyard Keeper in Black Butler. He's got long white hair, the skeletal gaunt look. It's all a bit weird, as I originally thought this was the Phantom character, but no, it turns out that this is actually the player character and also a stand-in for Gaston Leroux, the original novel writer. What a lot of people don't realise is that he wrote a lot of novels as if he was an investigative reporter instead of a novelist. So yes, it turns out that we're going to play flashbacks of the whole game. We are introduced to the characters after everything has been said and done, and we know what the outcome will be. This is similar to, yet also different to the novel, as Gaston actually writes as if we know what happened, whereas we do not know what's happened yet in the game. So this game does a really good attempt at doing a revisionist story. I think that's the right term. Andrew Lloyd Webber also tries to do this, but he does it to a lesser effect. We are then finally introduced to one of the three main characters, Miss Christine Daae, who is fairly unchanged from the main story for the most part. There are some tiny character differences, and in the end she's a little heartless, which is very out of character, but I can forgive that for the sake of their story. The biggest difference is that she is one of two characters that have very unnatural hair colours, which will be shown in the drawing very soon, and also in the sprites that you probably see wandering around in the background. It makes her ethereal and beautiful, but it was a little bit off-putting at first. I wouldn't have minded so much if there wasn't more than one character that had a weird hair colour. Eventually, as normal, Christine does meet Raoul, the young man that she will inevitably fall in love with. Raoul, however, is a character that I really do not like. He is the young son of the Count de Chargny, but his parents passed away when he was young and his brother has raised him in their stead. He is a captain in the army and loves the opera. In the book, he is headstrong, lovestruck, and a fool, and regularly does stupid things like threaten the Phantom directly so that he can get himself and others in trouble. In the book, it is endearing. In the musical, it's frustrating. He's a hypocrite. And in this game, it's also awfully frustrating. Raoul is also the only other character to have strangely coloured hair, and it's pink. He also cries a lot. Now, honestly, I know that sounds weird. I do think men's mental health is important. I really, really do. I cannot stress it enough. And I think that it's a terribly underfunded and undersupported part of our society. But this man tests my patience. He doesn't take anything Christine says into account, makes her situation so much worse, and just generally cries at the drop of a hat, and even makes the other characters uncomfortable at times. His whole story is expanded by creating a new subplot where Christine is believed to be the murderer of a side character, and he just makes the whole thing a whole lot worse, and drives his one true love into the arms of the Phantom. This whole section felt a bit tacked on, and as a way to explain why Christine went to the Angel instead of it just being her naivety. It's a strange plot point to add into the game, and it was a bit awkward to play in. There is another plot point / character that I was really unhappy about them adding in. There's a character called Melek, who is just nowhere in the book, and she has been included, it seems, to add a terrible edge to the Phantom's backstory. She is a blind woman who was kind to him, and so he has kidnapped her and attempts to make her his wife. And this has failed, so he has placed her in a room for 10 years and just kind of treated her like a pet that he feeds and waters so she doesn't die. She really didn't need to be included other than to make the Phantom darker than he needed to be. This isn't the final area of the story that they have changed, but the whole thing is a lot more darker and crueler than it was in the novels, which is ultimately at odds with the beautiful and charming designs of the characters in the background. It's not a terribly bad thing, as it doesn't stand out too much, but it is enough to cause some upset every now and again. It kind of removes some of the charm and wonder that was supposed to be inherent in the original novel, but it's not too terrible. Okay, I've spoken a lot about the story and the design, but what about the actual gameplay? This is a game after all, isn't it? Well, yes and no. Originally, I thought there would be so much more to do. You kind of explore all the areas you're in, and you can find little cats, or musical notes, that act as hints for you if you get stuck, and notes about the actual world around you. It was really interesting to find out what the Paris Opera House was built over, and this is a pretty fun part to do. However, there's a lot of railroading and hand-holding in this game. It's not particularly hard or difficult if you actually read what you're doing and don't just hammer the A button. It's also a bit more like a visual novel, but you can still walk around. There are some very small puzzles to do, but they're not really complicated or anything mind-blowing like that. It's not the best part of the game. The best part of the game is the art and the story, which is why I've spent most of that review discussing this. I won't lie, I got this game on sale for 5 of your British pounds, so I can't really argue. I've had literally hours of enjoyment, even if it's only just seeing a new version of the story. If you want to get into the Phantom of the Opera but you don't want to read the book because it's a little dry, still really hilarious when you find out that the Phantom has a fake nose, then this would be for you. Keep in mind it's not exactly the same. It's a lot closer to the original text than the musical is. I mean, I can't sing, but I do enjoy watching this musical. So yeah, overall, gameplay isn't as solid as it could be. It's something nice and different, just added in, kind of thrown in so that you can have something other than reading to do. But I did like the fact that it was a simple game that can just be played, and a more interesting way to get people into reading, which is something that I think we're sorely lacking in this day and age. Books are wonderful, and why not have games that are also a type of book that just make it easier for people who get bored reading? I think that's a good thing. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Take care, have fun, and we will see you next time. Bye!